He stood in front of the mirror, nervously adjusting his collar for the 5th time, trying to flatten the wrinkle that refused to obey. The clock ticked louder than usual, and the soft hum of the baby monitor in the background made his heart ache with both pride and loneliness. Tonight was the first time in 4 years that Daniel Carter was going on a date, not as a man searching for love, but as a single dad who had almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen as someone more than Emma's father. His hands trembled slightly when he picked up the bouquet of sunflowers, not roses, because she had said in their chats that roses felt too rehearsed. The doorbell rang softly, and for a moment, time froze. His heart skipped. He wasn't ready, not really, but he had been waiting for this moment all week. He smiled, exhaled, and opened the door. And then she whispered, her voice trembling just enough to make the world tilt on its axis, "My kids are outside. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the beauty of hearts that heal, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heart Tale. Because sometimes, love finds its way through broken doors and quiet whispers." From that moment, everything changed. The air between them was filled with both surprise and understanding. She stood there, Lily, in a simple cream sweater and jeans, her eyes soft but anxious. Daniel could tell she hadn't planned to say that, not so soon. He noticed the slight hesitation in her breath, the nervous glance toward the driveway. He peeked outside, and there they were, 2 little figures sitting quietly in the back seat of an old blue SUV, their silhouettes barely visible through the glass. For a brief second, his heart softened. It wasn't judgment he felt, it was recognition. Because once, he too had shown up somewhere hoping the world wouldn't see how complicated life had become. He smiled awkwardly and said, "You can bring them in if you want." She looked at him like she wasn't sure she'd heard him right. But when she saw the sincerity in his eyes, something inside her eased. She turned back to the car and waved her kids in. And just like that, the date that was supposed to be quiet and romantic turned into something far more beautiful, chaotic, real, and human. The night unfolded differently than either of them expected. Daniel's daughter, Emma, woke up halfway through dinner, rubbing her sleepy eyes, her soft curls tangled in her favorite pink blanket. Lily's twin boys, Noah and Ethan, shyly peeked around the corner of the kitchen island, holding onto each other like a pair of cautious explorers. What was meant to be candlelight and music became a scene of spilled juice, cartoons, and laughter echoing through the house. Yet, in that imperfection, something extraordinary bloomed. Daniel found himself watching Lily as she crouched down to help Emma build a block tower, her gentle voice patient and warm. He realized it had been a long time since he'd heard that kind of softness in his home. He remembered the nights after his wife passed, the endless silence that felt heavier than grief itself. He had promised himself he wouldn't let anyone in again, not until he could breathe without guilt. But seeing Lily there, surrounded by 3 kids who found joy in nothing more than sharing a blanket and snacks, he felt a strange warmth crawl back into his chest, the kind that made you believe life wasn't done surprising you yet. The following weeks became a delicate rhythm of cautious steps and small miracles. They met at the park more often, at first, for the kids, but Daniel found himself lingering a little longer each time, finding excuses to stay. Sometimes he'd bring coffee for Lily, sometimes she'd bring cookies for Emma, and sometimes they'd just sit in silence watching their children chase each other under the golden evening sun. For the first time in years, Daniel laughed without forcing it. He noticed Lily's quiet strength, the way she handled tantrums with calm and discipline, the way she carried her past without bitterness. One evening, as they sat on a park bench, she told him her story. Her husband had left when the twins were barely a year old. No warning, no goodbye. Just a note that said, "I can't do this anymore." She had raised them alone, fighting jobs and bills, wiping tears no one saw. When she spoke, there was no anger, just exhaustion, and beneath it, hope. Daniel listened, and in her voice, he heard echoes of his own pain. 2 people who had both lost something they never thought they'd find again, trust. But not everything was simple. The more they grew closer, the louder the doubts became. Daniel's parents warned him that getting attached could confuse Emma. Lily's friends told her it was too soon to trust another man. And between juggling work, parenting, and fear, the nights grew heavier again. There were times when Daniel would wake up to Emma crying for her mom and feel the old ache clawing back at him. He would stare at his phone, debating if he should text Lily, wondering if it was fair to let her in when his heart still carried scars. One rainy night, she showed up unexpectedly. Her twins were sick, her car had broken down, and she was soaked to the bone. Without a word, he opened the door. She stood there shivering, her face pale, tears mixing with the rain. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. And for the first time, Daniel didn't think, he just held her. That night, as the kids slept on the couch wrapped in blankets, the two of them sat near the window, the sound of rain filling the silence. She told him she was scared of ruining what they had. That she couldn't offer perfection, only pieces. He looked at her and said softly, "Maybe that's all I have too. Pieces." And somehow, in that brokenness, they both found peace. From then on, life wasn't perfect, but it was real. Their weekends became shared breakfasts, messy kitchens, and laughter that belonged to a family still learning how to trust again. Months passed, and soon, it was hard to imagine a day without each other. But life, as always, had one more test waiting. Emma got sick one night, a high fever that wouldn't break. Daniel rushed her to the hospital, panic ripping through every part of him. Lily arrived minutes later, still in her pajamas, clutching medicine and Emma's favorite toy. She sat beside him all night, never leaving.